Good afternoon. Welcome to the Jenny Lee Perspective. I am Jenny Lee Cockrell. So, in today's episode, I want to discuss with you a verdict that the court released yesterday, which was Halloween. So, I think it was a trick for some and a treat for others. But let's talk a little bit about exactly what happened so that you can have a perspective on what this means to buyers and sellers as well as the real estate industry. First of all, the case is in Missouri, and it was a case that a group of plaintiffs filed against NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, as well as Keller Williams and Home Services. The case is that they allege that the transactions, this was, I think, the last 7 years, from 2015 to 2022, that they were forced to pay for a buyer's agent commission, and that they didn't have the option to list their property without paying a buyer's agent commission. And so the verdict said that NAR, Keller Williams, and Home Services colluded and therefore forced sellers to pay for a buyer's agent commission. Now, what many real estate professionals are going to say, and I agree, is that these sellers signed this agreement. They knew that. In the listing agreement, it spells out what percentage or amount of commission is being paid to a buyer's agent and what amount will the seller agent retain. Now, in my opinion, the seller didn't have to list it in the MLS. They didn't have to use an agent. They could have sold it on their own, with Zillow or just for sale by owner or whatever they wanted to do. Nobody forced them to list it. Now, I might also say at this point that my experience and my knowledge comes from the fact that I have been a real estate broker in charge for many years. I've been in the real estate industry since 2000, and I have a great deal of experience as a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. I am not a broker in charge or a realtor any longer because I focus on real estate investing and I teach other people how to invest in real estate. My husband, though, he does retain his brokerage and he does manage real estate companies for us in Florida and in South Carolina. So my opinions are professional and through experience. But I will say that I think that this is a horrible decision by the jury. I do agree that the buyer's agent is not an option for a seller to refuse, but I strongly believe that this should be the case. Because as a buyer, you really do need to have your own representation. If there's going to be representation between the parties, then it really should be equal. Both parties should have representation so that it is equal. Now, back in the 80s, okay, so all this is doing is rewinding the clock, and back in the 80s, there were not buyer agents, okay? And so if you wanted to buy a house, the agent listed it and you contacted the agent and you dealt with that agent and you bought it through that agent. But guess what? That agent's allegiance was to the seller. Okay, so it's not up to them to say, you might want to consider the age of the HVAC or look at this problem or that problem. No. So I strongly believe that the buyer is going to be the one harmed in future transactions, because I believe that the buyer is going to have a false sense of security, feeling like they can trust the information that's being put on Zillow or wherever, or even on the MLS now, because if everybody's only representing the seller, there's nobody helping the buyer. So the argument on the other side is that, oh, okay, well, now the buyer can go out and buy and hire their own buyer agent. Sure, of course they can. But will they? Can they afford it? I mean, you want to harm the real estate industry more than what's already being done naturally? I mean, you're asking somebody who, especially first-time home buyers, to scrape together a down payment. Now they're going to pay more money to hire a buyer agent? No, I don't think that there's going to be the majority of buyers that are going to have the financial ability to do that. I do think that they're going to rely falsely on information that is just not correct. And not only that, I can tell you from the many, many years that I've been in the real estate industry that when you go to look at a home, there are a lot of different things you need to be looking for, clues you need to be looking for that are going to be future expenses. And if you're not experienced, you're not an experienced buyer or an investor, you're going to miss some things. And that is what a buyer's agent is going to do. They're going to help you make a better decision. Now, are all buyer's agents equal? No. But in general, a buyer's agent is a buyer's agent because they love working with buyers. And as a professional, they're helping buyers make better decisions. Unfortunately, the only person getting a treat in this is the attorney, because the attorney is going to make his big fat fee, which is generally about 40% on $1.7 billion, was pretty darn good for a payday. And I know that they've already filed another case against more real estate companies. So although this was in Missouri, I can guarantee you there'll be plenty of attorneys looking for an opportunity to go out there and start these cases in other states against more and all other real estate companies, especially the big ones that have the big policies, that these insurance policies can pay these verdicts. So I think this is a terrible outcome for the future buyers of real estate. I do. I do think that this will continue to break down the real estate industry. I do believe the real estate industry is going to go through a huge shakeup. And there's a lot I can say about that, and I'll say it in more videos and more specific topics, because there are a lot of things about the real estate industry that do need to change. But unfortunately, I don't believe this is one of them. I believe if one person is going to be represented, you need both sides represented. So unfortunately, my opinion is this is a bad thing. Now, I know they filed the appeal, so it's not over, but it is already affecting the way real estate companies are going to offer services. I know they're all sitting around their conference rooms today determining what do we want to do going forward. I know they are. They would be very poor business people if they weren't. Anyway, what I'd like to hear from you is, what is your perspective? What are your thoughts on this? And what more detail would you like for me to give you about this? What more detail would you like for me to cover on this topic or any other real estate topic? And I'll continue this Jenny Lee perspective, and I look forward to hearing your perspective and seeing your comments. And with that, I hope your day is fabulous.